The whole town now knows what a Boilermaker is.
Okay, and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for June 12th. Our agenda, we have the fiscal year 2017 audit review. Dick's here to walk us through that. Then we have a dashboard discussion. We'll do member updates, public input. Got a lot of people in the crowd tonight. We got some minutes to approve, and then we're going to talk about a board reorg for fiscal year 19. All right, so let's kick it off with the audit review. Bonnie, you want to enlighten us, and then we'll kind of turn it over to
I did provide you all with a management letter. I did email out the financials, but they're kind of lengthy, so I didn't want to kill all the trees. But I do have copies of the management letter for you tonight. This is Dick Kingston. He's the town's auditor. And I've worked with him for several years now, since I've been here, but also with another community, so.
Be cheaper if we just hire them and just have them write the same letter every year.
So I'll turn it over to you, Dick. Why don't you give us a rundown of what's going on, and how things look, and if we're doing a good job or a bad job.
Well, thanks for letting me do the audit again, first of all. And usually I find these work better if they're a conversation rather than a presentation. So
Sure.
anytime you want to interject, disagree, or ask a question, that's fine with me. I'm going to start with the management letter, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Governmental Accounting Standard Boards is the standard setting boards for all municipal accounting financial statements. And they continually update their standards in order to provide better and more information for financial statement users, like Moody's and banks and lenders, Standard & Poor's. That's what our financial statements are primarily for bond ratings. A hot topic with the GASB right now is other post-employment benefits liability, which is the retirees' health insurance. Effective for fiscal year 2017, they actually issued two standards. One was statement number 74, which regards your other post-employment benefit trust fund. And so we had to put a lot of disclosures in your notes to the financial statements and a lot of schedules in the back of the report that required supplementary information that will eventually be 10-year schedules that will show how your OPEB trust fund is tracking. The standards also gave actuaries a lot of requirements on how they had to come up with the discount rate they're using to calculate your unfunded liability. The discount rate is one of the biggest numbers that in the determination of it. So they'll say it's right now for you. There's three different options they have to do. If you're a substantially funded plan and you've shown that you have a history of funding it, then they can say that you have a funding policy in place. Even if you don't have a formal one, but you've shown that, they can say you have a funding policy. When that's the case, which is the case for you guys, they can use what they call the expected long-term rate of return, which is 7.5%, which they calculate for you to be 7.5%. That's what they expect you to earn over a 25-year period average. So if you have a minimally funded plan with no funding policy or history, then you have to use something called the municipal bond rate. The municipal bond rate for fiscal year 17 was 3.5%, 3.58%. And it fluctuates a lot, whereas yours is probably going to stay at 7.5%, 7.25%, 7.75%. It's going to be pretty good. The municipal bond rate can fluctuate. A year ago, it was 2.85. So you don't have the statement, so I'll just tell you the numbers. On page 54, there's something called, for the net OPEB liability, there's something they were required to put in called a sensitivity analysis. And it says, okay, here's what your liability is based on the 7.5% discount rate. And if it went to 8.5%, we have to tell you what it would be, and if it went to 6.5%. So just to show you how important it was for you guys to have this funding, substantial funding in place, and to consistently do it, the difference between a 7.5% and a 6.5% discount rate is about $3.5 million. So your liability, the net OPEB liability, that's in here right now for $16,700,000 would be $30 million. So these are some of the reasons that Moody's and bond rating agencies love to see these plans being funded. I mean, your liability is significantly less than what it would be. There's also other things that are into calculation of the OPEB, and it's what they determine is like healthcare trend rates. And the same thing here is for that. When they say it's going to be 8% a year and it's going to decrease by 1% to a rate of 5% for the rest of their study. And it's the same thing. It's a $3.5 million swing on that. So if you went, these numbers, these discount rate, if the discount rate was, you did better, I like to say the better part, if you did better by 1% and you earned 8.5, and the healthcare trend rate went down and you only went at 7, then it would be a $7 million swing just on the number that $16 million that you have there. So I don't like to say it's a shot in the dark, but it's almost like your 401k plan when you say, how much should I put in my 401k plan every year to a financial advisor, and they say, well, tell me what you're going to need. And if you say, well, I think that my rent's going to be X, and by the time you get closer to it, it's double that, it really messes up what your 401k. And also, it's what are you going to earn on that 401k? If you say, I'm going to earn 7.5%, and you don't, then so it's the same kind of a financial tool as that would be as a financial planner. And he said, well, the actuaries will say, I can only use what the assumptions that I have, and I have support for my assumptions, but they could change. One of the other big things that changes on these is mortality tables. So every time a mortality table changes and people live longer, it blows up the actuary's report. So I think you can't live and die with these numbers because there's so many assumptions in them, but they're comparable to other municipalities, and that's what Standards & Poor's and Moody's wants. They want comparability, and if everybody's using the same standards to come up with the same numbers, although, it's going to be close.
So of the other municipalities that you deal with or your company deals with of our approximate size, where are we?
You are, I'd say, the top 2 out of the ones I deal with. You guys are, and your plan and the way you've been doing it is really good. All your reserves, I was going to mention that, all your reserves are very, very healthy. I mean, it's why you're a AAA community. I only have a few AAA communities and entities that I audit, but, I mean, the ones that are AAA, almost all have substantial funding in their OPEB trust. I mean, $1 million in funding is, when they start compounding that out over a number of years, is like many, many $1 million in net position because they extrapolate it forward. So
can just,
Yep.
I forget where we are on this. Like, what percentage funded are we? We have a number like that?
Yep,
Just don't remember,
I don't remember either.
approximately.
%, 29.84%.
So these other ones that are in this other stratosphere, they're like at 80 or 90 or 100% funded to get to that next higher level? Because you said there were 3 tiers, and we were in the middle.
No, I must have not explained it good.
Okay.
What I said is, when they said the 7.5%, you're in the top tier on that.
Oh, okay,
So
we're
you got
already
to
there.
use, the 7.5%.
Because we have a plan.
Because you have a plan.
Okay, but I thought there were
you have
some
a
people that
funding.
really are almost all
No,
already funded
no,
already.
the people who don't have any funding or don't have a history of funding, they have to use a lower discount
That one I
rate.
got. I was thinking that there are some people that are up there that really have almost 100% funded already, and they're someplace else.
You know,
Very few.
like the Middlesex County's been trying to fund for 20 years, and they're only 25 years, and they're only 52% funded, or something like that. So you
Okay.
guys in the less than 10 years that you've been funding this are at 30%. So you guys are
Okay, all right, good
You're in a
answer.
good spot.
Thank you.
Who's the next highest? Like what percentage is the highest
the highest.
town that has, you said we're
You know
number
what?
two?
I can tell you that the towns that are the most funded are the entities. I've seen some data from the Department of Revenue, and the ones that are the highest funded are the places that don't have school systems. because they just have small towns, and they don't have,
Rid of alumni field,
No,
all those kids.
no, no, it's
And
just.
we're being fat
So,
shamed.
I tell some of my communities that they have regional school districts, and so the liability goes with the regional school. So although they look like they're very well-funded, I say to them, sometimes when they get too proud, I say, you know, if the regional school wanted to be as funded as you want to be, you wouldn't be able to afford it, you know, so, and like water districts, and so I have some water districts that are overfunded right now, and because they've just, you know, they have 12 employees or, you know, something like that, so.
Okay, okay, good.
The next comment has to do with the ambulance accounts receivable. This is somewhat of continuation from the prior year, whereas there were some issues with the reports that you were getting from the ambulance accounts receivable. So this year, there was a variance, it wasn't big, but it was about $4,500 between the ambulance list and the accounts receivable. And it appears that it was a timing, because it seemed to be off and then catch up, off and catch up. But we couldn't, because of the reports that you got from the ambulance receivable company, we just couldn't tie it down. So, and say what's exactly making this up. So we just thought we'd put the comment in, and I think it's a moot point now anyhow, because.
They're going away, right?
It's gonna go away.
On the coastal.
Yeah,
Rock and Pearl.
and so I think one of the things that Bonnie asked them for was more reporting, right?
And I've worked with Coastal before, and their reporting capabilities are impeccable. I had no problem reconciling even, you know, just the smallest amounts with them, and they haven't changed their reporting standards, so.
So what would happen is they'd get it posted, they'd collect money in 1 month, and then post it against the person's account, and then get you the money in the next month, but we just couldn't nail it down, which was, you know, which is which, so.
And it's $4,000 gap over how much money on a?
412,000.
Yeah.
400,000, so it's not like it's a huge percent.
Right.
But
Right,
it's something.
Something.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
yes. The rest of the management letter is just the status of the prior year comments. We like to put those in to identify whether the recommendations we made in the past have been implemented, so you'll know that. And instead of going through them all, I can tell you that all the prior year comments have either been implemented or in the process of being implemented. As far as those couple of them had to do with the school, the federal grants,
Right.
and those things, but all the other ones have been implemented.
Excuse me, do we know how far along the schools are? It says they're reviewing their policies. Do we know?
Yeah, they actually have a document that, is it NASBO? NASBO has a document that, it's their regional organization, basically, that they've created kind of a template for the schools to meet their obligation in this area. So the yeoman's work has been done, they just kind of need to address the little individual issues that each school district might have. So they've got a good jump on it because they were able to start with a document that had all of the architecture built into it. So Steve Mark has been working on it. I haven't checked with him in the last 2 months just because I've been dealing with the Munis conversion. But the last time I did talk to him,
It's a really good template, too. I might have been the one that gave it to him, because I've given it to most of the places, because it's a really good starting point. One of the things it addresses is like procurement. The procurement rules for federal grants are different than what they are for the state of Massachusetts. And in some ways, they're more strict, and in some ways, they're less strict. But it doesn't help the town, because in the way they're more strict, you have to abide by, and the way they're less strict, you've got to abide by the state. So you get the most strict on both sides.
right.
And how do these fit with Munis? Does Munis help them in staying on track with these different systems?
It can. So we've actually talked about that with the workflow process. So we can design workflow to help with this, but we need to get it kind of rolled out first and then add that component in.
Okay.
So we have talked about it. 'Cause
Okay.
That's really it for the management letter. I'll be glad to go into the financials with any questions that you want, but, you know, it's 70 pages. But I would like to just take a minute to discuss the financial position of the town right now. Over the past 10 years, there's a page in here that shows your free cash over the past 10 years and how it's grown. And the town's done a great job of increasing its reserves, and not only free cash, but then it's various stabilization funds. That's why you're a AAA community. All the reserves and the policies that they can rely on. I have communities that their free cash goes up, and then their free cash goes down, and it just kind of, and that's what Moody's likes, and Standard & Poor's, they like to have reliability. They like to know that there's policies, and that, not that you're not going to ever use your reserves, because that's what they're for, but that you're going to continually try to rebuild them, and that there's going to be something that they can rely on.
Not a roller coaster
Right,
ride.
that's, yeah, so the roller coaster doesn't help your bond rating. A lot of times I have places that start to do something good, and they get to a certain point, and they want to get their bond rating upgraded, and Moody's will say, well, not long enough. Like, we need to see some consistency on this. So you guys have shown consistency in this over the years. You've also had substantial new growth over the last bunch of years, which has really helped your ability to fund budgets reasonably and to put away the money. One of the things I just want you to keep when new growth flattens, that's when things start to shake out, and you have to worry about those
Would
things.
you like to come to our budget review meeting? You can sit on this side of the table, and
Sure.
you sound like
Later
the
for the politicians.
Yeah, we've been talking about
Preaching
that.
But anyway, why don't
Yeah.
you finish, yeah.
So the math I always use is, I say, for you guys, I'm just using an approximate 75% of your revenues is property taxes, real estate. So if new growth flattens and you're only going up 2.5% of 75% of for your 75, and eventually motor vehicle, and that kind of flattens out too, and state aid. So every time you give, if salaries are a similar percentage of 75%, then as long as you give out more than that, if you give out 3% raises and there's a percent or a 0.5% built into steps, then you're upside down on your budget process. Which I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, because you have to compete at certain times. But these reserves that you have are things that are going to let you get through these budget ups and downs, and help you during the times when the salaries are going up more than you can raise in the current year's level. You don't like to have to use reserves for operating revenues, but sometimes it's just to get you through until the next little cycle. But I have a lot of places that are in just the opposite. They haven't been putting their money into their reserves, and they haven't, and now, as salaries are going up, and they are, then they're struggling they're making cuts, because they have a lot of layoffs coming up. And so I think that, you're in a good place for those things, with your budgets versus actuals look good. I mean,
Give us a grade here, or,
you're an A community, AAA.
all right, so we matched the
Yep.
bond.
Yep.
Well, I think one thing that's helped us has been the low inflation rate, obviously.
Absolutely.
And what people don't remember is, back in the 80s, when people were getting 8% raises every 6 months just to keep up with inflation, the town was upside down, and we were laying people off, and we just didn't have the money to pay them.
Yeah.
And we ended up in a couple of overrides over the period to balance the budget. So I think, something to keep our eyes on is, obviously, as inflation creeps up, if it in fact does, things get nasty in a hurry. So it's just something to be careful of and something to be mindful of.
That's one of the things I think I thought for a while, is that in some strange perverted way, bad times are good for communities, because raises are under 2%, and 75% of your revenues go up, and so but good times are bad, because it's the other way around. Your salaries and raises go up more, then
Everybody
the two,
wants
you're still,
more.
you're stuck at 2.5% no matter what, good times or bad. So that's
That's when
exactly
you
right.
really rely on the new growth.
Right.
And we're getting to the point where one of these days it's going to peter off. It's just,
We've got some big things on the horizon, project-wise, too, which,
Been like a drug the last few years.
What about our
actually.
debt levels?
You know, I mean, it's not, I mean, I can't say that I'm an expert in debt levels the way a Standard & Poor's and Moody's are. I mean, there's nothing in me that, like, jumped out at me saying it was, like, awful. I mean, you're meeting them. And you know what? That's, most of the time, for you guys, it's how palatable is it to the taxpayers more than to you, because even Moody's, because you do debt exclusions. So it doesn't negatively impact the budget process, because whatever you do, you just raise through the tax burden, you know, so you just increase the tax burden.
Well,
we
recently,
haven't
we
done that
haven't been
recently.
doing that.
Right.
Oh, you've been,
We've been pulling it out of,
Exclusion stabilization fund.
that's right, you've been putting the money in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's really, you're gonna see that in the 18 stuff,
Yeah.
because when we set the tax rate, DOR called me
They
and
said you're
said,
living.
you're paid, you know, you're not raising everything that you need to
Yeah.
do, and it saved like, it's 19 cents on the rate, on the single rate for this fiscal year.
By not
So,
using
By
it.
not using everything, so, that'll be more, you'll see that in next year's audit, for the 18.
You know, it's funny, there's two sides of that coin, of not using the debt exclusion money. And one is not using it because then the taxpayers say, we didn't use it, you know, we only use it when we need it. And then the other side of the coin is that you went and fought for a debt exclusion, and how many times can you go to well for debt exclusions, and you're not even using it? You know, sometimes it's political capital that you use to get a debt exclusion. So there's both sides of that coin. And you know, for me, I just look at the financial health of the entity, and I always say, raise the whole thing. I say it's somebody else's job to look after the financial health of the taxpayer, but not mine, so I just,
part of the discussion we have here sometimes with the, you know, disagreements or whatever, is we could fund it inside, and it's a different voting mechanism and so on, whereas if you're buying something big, and do you want to make it go out and do an exclusion where people have to go to the ballot and vote for
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
you can make the discussion, they can come to town meeting and so on, but that's some of the rub that we felt, as much as the money itself, was like, to make sure you're really getting the buy-in, is this what the whole town wants to pay for, as opposed to just a
Yeah.
group that's
That's at
excited
town
about it
meeting,
and so
yeah.
on.
And the other thing is, because of your AAA rating, you're getting the best rates, you know,
Yeah.
available,
I
so,
realize that, yeah.
yeah.
Did you look at any of the CPA stuff and how we manage that?
You know, I look at that a little bit, and, I mean, that's a whole field unto itself, that CPA, and I can't tell you management-wise whether you used it prudently. I can tell you used it legally, but, and all the requirements on the recap sheet and everything was proper, but I can't, like,
Give us any guidance as to whether some other towns are doing something a different
no,
way?
I think that you guys do a lot of good things. I mean, one of the things you guys did was to appropriate money into it for a project that you were going to do anyhow, and that made you increase, yeah, that's a nice thing to do, so.
Okay. Okay. Board members, any other comments, questions? I appreciate you coming out.
Okay.
I think great report. Glad to hear that we're still right up there in
I
the
wish all mine were this
AAA.
good.
and-
No real recommendations on things we need to do different next year? I mean, that I saw in here?
Well, you have plenty to do with,
Yeah.
everything's gonna
Well,
change next year anyhow.
Because of the new
The
system, you mean.
system, yeah, yeah.
Do you have any other towns that are using the new system?
Munis? Oh, a lot.
And
Yeah.
does that help in the process? I mean, what's going to be the
It's the
benefit?
best, my opinion, it's the best one out there, for sure. It's a complicated system. It's a high-end user. It's a high-end user system.
We have a high-end user, it's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely, you do. I mean, you have many high-end users.
Right.
But I'm saying it gets hard when it starts filtering out to departments, because it's not user-friendly. I mean, SoftWrite is not nearly as powerful as Munis, but, you know, kind of, it's more
QuickBooks or something.
QuickBooks
Yeah,
type,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like you can pick it up and say, I know it's got to do this, and just go down and find it. In Munis, just to run reports, there's screens and there's boxes that have to be checked behind the screens, and so it's like, and like somebody told me differently just recently, but up until recently, however, if the last person to run a box, to run a report, it stayed in that whatever mode they left it in, not the last time you ran it at your desk. So if you changed something, you know, like, there's a box you have to click, it's the same report, year-to-date budget report, it's the same report, whether it's for revenues and expenditures. There's a box that you click on a little behind-the-scenes page to say, put the revenue headings in. And so, there's just things,
Configurations.
you
The
know.
architecture behind it.
Yeah, but it's, in my opinion, it's the best one out there. And I hate saying this because the software companies come and go, and I tell people like a lot that this, if you buy Munis, it's gonna be very expensive, but it's probably the last one you're gonna buy. And SoftWrite has kind of been bought a couple times, they just kind of, some of the smaller ones just kind of are there, and then they're gone. It's just, it's a funny industry after all the work they put into it, and they just kind of disappear somehow.
They just buy their customers.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
and wait for them until they say, we buy the customers, and we're gonna stop supporting this in a year. And then they say, but we have all the backup, so all the information, all the codes, so we can easily transition you to our new, more expensive one.
I know that business.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks for coming
Okay.
out. Appreciate
Thanks for
your
having me.
report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay. Moving along, I updated the dashboard here and take a look
Bonnie,
at it.
tell him next time he comes, he can wear business casual. The
Yeah, you
suit's
can
really
go- yeah, you
necessary
don't
for
have
us.
to
For an auditor.
Yeah, right, that's right.
We need, now we need the ghost of like Christmas future. I want the future guy to come in.
What's that? What's the feature?
I mean, he was the ghost of Christmas past. I want the future one to come in and tell us what we need to do, right?
But Betsy, I like this
That's where the strategy is.
Yeah, it's really kind of hard to get a strategy. Anyway, well, let's move on.
Good,
to
well,
the-
that's all good news, I think expected.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
it's just,
It's good. We just keep doing what we're doing.
But it also, you know, when he was talking about, you know, looking at, it's gonna get flattened out, you gotta, I mean, I'm thinking when,
Yeah.
you know, Alan raises his hand and say, you know, I've been there and the other time, we have to be, we really have to, and it's easy to get caught up in the other, but,
Yeah, we
you
spoke,
know?
It's so easy to sell projects when you have put money away, and you say, oh, don't have to raise the taxes, we'll do it in-house. But those days, the waves go like that. And Fred and I have been on the bottom of those, so when we start pounding the desk, it's because we've been there.
yeah, well, we rely on you guys for some of that information too, because I haven't, since I've been on the board, seen that decline. So
But
what are we doing to prepare? And that's, it sounds like we're on the right track for some things, but, you know, I always think we can be doing more, and so,
Well, like he said, for the last 10 years, we've been,
yeah.
you know, new growth has
new
kept
growth
us
has kept us going. for
going,
sure.
and we've
And,
Right.
and
been able to do lots of things that we normally wouldn't be able to do.
Right. But it's-
But I just worry that the next big project that comes along, and Bonnie and company, bless their hearts, the selectmen say, we can pay for that under the levy, show us how. Well, they'll show you how because they've been told to do it, and they
Right.
work here. But that doesn't mean they necessarily think it's the right idea, but nobody asks them that. They always ask them, can you do it? Not, should you do it? And so it's us that has to say, you shouldn't, or you should do it this way and not that way. It's just easy to buy things when there's money there.
Well, we looked at that. Bonnie ran some numbers of commercial growth for the next few years coming out, new commercial growth, new residential growth. And the commercial growth is, you know, doesn't look like it's gonna be that big. So, I mean, we spoke to that in our review before town meeting on LCTV, so you can check it out. But I can certainly send out the deck to everybody that shows those couple of slides too, which I'll do. I'll make a note to do that so you can see it. But yeah, I mean, future is not looking as bright as it has been in the past, so.
Well, you put off, I'm not saying we put projects off. I mean, we've been in good times, but we have. I mean, when we look at, we're talking about, the space needs study. Well, I don't need a space needs study to go up on the second and third floor to know that we need a new facility of some kind, right? So that's the stuff we should be trying to hit hard during this time, right? It's these large projects that are just, we're pushing them down the road. We can talk fire engine and things like that.
And
We've got a strategy for that, but
It's gonna be a big nut, too.
it is, and it's gonna be across the board, and we know it. And we can talk library, and we can talk town offices, park and rec, and all these things. That's what's in front of us. So how do we best prepare for that next year, 2, 3, really that's a 3-year plan. Somewhere in the next 3 years, all of those things potentially gonna be in front of us, right? So,
The library was moved to number 3 on the list.
right, in July, it'll come out, we'll know, maybe it's
Whether it-
1.
Whether it's July or
Yeah.
January, but
Right.
it's coming, and somebody has to address it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And do we know what the number is?
I'm sorry?
We know where we are right now in the pecking order, but do we know what the number is from a grant?
The grant is
Up to
40.
40.
It's
up
just
to
under
40.
$5 million.
$5 million.
If we get the full
It's 4
40%.
something, or
Got it, got it.
But they could come back, it could be awarded at lower than the
Yeah.
40%. It could be.
So the most
We're
it
not
would be is 40%.
But I mean, either way.
That's right, so
that's
we'd have
just-
to fund the other 60, which, looking at what we've got, there's no way to do that inside the levy. That has to be an override. I don't see how we could do that any other way.
What I'm saying is to do it, these are the times, it's difficult, but it's the right time to do these things if the town determines that's what they want. I mean, as opposed to
Right, when everything
the absolute,
crashes,
no, we
and
can't
then-
do it.
Right, yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
Yep.
so, but anyway, that's for another discussion, so.
Yep.
But
But I mean, the bad times, I remember as a taxpayer going to town meeting, having to vote, we're gonna do an override so the highway department can buy this truck or that truck. There was
Yeah,
no
see,
money
that's-
for anything. We were voting for all, town meeting was deciding if they should get a truck, this truck or that truck. It was
Yeah.
we
awful.
just bought a new truck
Right.
for $140,000, and then we put another $120,000 worth of equipment on it. There were years when
That was the number.
there was no way you were gonna do that. No way.
And one year Donald's bought our police cars, remember that?
Yeah.
There was. It said sponsored by Donald's on the side. There was
I
no money.
remember that, yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
So, that's just,
Well, I
Scary, 'cause
you know,
the
I
good times
was,
were
I was
going a long
disappointed
time.
in the
And I get nervous.
salary
all of
raises
it.
this year too.
Oh, we're
He made a very good point about that.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely shake our heads at, I think what we did with salaries this year, getting things on par, doing the studies that showed, this was the right time
Yeah.
to move everybody, so we become more competitive. But I don't know, how long ago were we flat when we're talking raises?
No, it wasn't that long ago.
mean-
We were doing zeros back 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
We're doing zeros across the board, but my concern, we always talk about is the OPEB. It's, you keep adding more people into the pie and.
you're chasing a number that gets
Chasing a
bigger and
number,
bigger.
it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Well, but we are fully funding all those new
Yeah,
people.
we
that
are,
come
we
on,
are.
so-
We are.
So that's
Any
not
new
killing
people.
not raising our
No, but it
liability,
makes it harder to
It makes it
hire
harder
more
to hire.
employees because we
which is a
have
good
to-
idea.
But still, we hired how many last year? What was that number, 17 or something like that? That blew me away when I saw that number.
Yeah. Well, but part of
17.
that was
The
the.
fire
The
department.
fire
I
department
know,
with the
Yeah,
change.
because we are fully funding now,
ALS.
But it
we
makes,
can only hire 2 employees instead of 3.
Which is, right, which is
It
what it
costs
should
us
be.
for
Should
2
be the
what it
real-
used to cost us for 3.
The real price of hiring those people, so that's.
Yeah, we're doing it the right way, without a doubt. We're calculating for our long-term costs, but, people just keep living longer, and at some point, you can't go broke doing it.
No.
Just
he's
funding-
looking at this end of the table, Alan.
Looking over here, Fred.
My God,
Guys,
we're gonna
saving
continue
you
doing
guys.
it.
So you better keep working.
No, we can speak to new
Have more
growth.
kids.
Yeah, that's.
We can speak to new growth and ideas and commercial versus residential and everything else, but to lean back on some of your insight on the past, and how do we get to that? How did we hit rock bottom? Was it a natural, the whole state, the economy in general, or was it a Littleton?
In my opinion, it was what he was talking about down the road. The board used to call them bluebirds. We had new growth coming out the yin-yang in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and everybody just spent like crazy. And then all of a sudden, new growth went totally flat. And within a couple of years, we were laying people off. We didn't have the money. We were just barely be able to make payroll.
But there were no policies and all these things
There
now
was
where
no
we say,
policies, but
free
yeah.
cash, it can't go to,
Right.
for operating, none of that stuff existed. And we did the high school inside the levy.
Yes,
And we,
that was the big killer for
and
a long
yeah,
time.
And we didn't have the other things in place to really make that the right thing to do at the time, and that
It
hurt us.
shouldn't have happened.
Right.
It should never have happened, and
What, doing it inside the levy?
doing it inside the levy. It was,
It was very different than the
that just
situation
finished
now.
everybody off.
Right.
New growth went down, and we bought $1 million payment. Back in those days, it was $1 million every year. And so you couldn't buy a police car, you couldn't buy anything. I remember sitting in a budget meeting where we needed to find $20,000 somewhere in this community to balance the budget. We were $20,000 short, and we couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it. Didn't we just go through that a couple months ago with the
Wasn't that $25,000?
Much less stressful.
But we could find it
could
easily
find it.
Yeah, we
enough.
can find
We
it.
just didn't want to find
Didn't
it.
want to find it.
Those days, we wanted to find it, we just couldn't find it.
Yeah. Well, I guess my concern is in looking forward looking, is the commercial growth. You need to have that balanced, and I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between the commercial new growth and the residential new growth. That they've got to kind of work in tandem. If you just have too much residential new growth, I mean, it costs us a little over $14,000 a student. You know, you start adding students into the school system, and it gets expensive real fast. So you've got to have that commercial piece
You
to
gotta be
offset
careful
that.
with the 14,000 per kid, because one more kid costs you virtually nothing. Two more kids cost you virtually nothing. You've got the teachers, you've got the administration, you've got the seats in the schools, you've got all that.
Yeah,
So saying that you've got to have another 14,000 to put a kid in a seat just is not right. But it comes in steps.
That's the
when you
difference.
get to
You're
the
not adding
point-
one or two kids at a time. Usually you've got a development, and that
But
adds
it-
a handful of students at a time.
But if you look at Mike's numbers, it contradicts.
Doesn't translate.
It contradicts what logic would tell you. Now, I agree, I can't believe that the 40B didn't impact the school system. Just in terms of number of kids coming in all at once. I have no idea how many kids live up there, but there's a hell of a lot of units up there. And just intuitively, it says, wow, that must be gonna impact the schools. I don't know if it is or not. But we've asked Mike a couple times over the last couple of years, and he's stated in this room and in their meetings, that they haven't seen the kind of growth that you would expect from the new growth figures that we show.
Well,
Partly
that's-
because more people like us are staying in town and our kids are out of the schools now. So, I mean, and
has something
that
to do with it,
balances
too. And they
well.
also have maybe younger families that are coming in that don't have children of school aged yet.
It may be, I don't know what the dynamic is, and I don't know what the population dynamic is, but it just hasn't been what I would have thought would have happened by now. It just hasn't.
We graduated, how many kids graduated this year? It was 106? 106?
Same as-
And-
So
and did I-
85, we had 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, so That's not a-
It's not a big difference, but
Right.
I did hear
But-
that
but-
a couple of the classes coming up are closer to the 150 mark. Is that true?
I don't think it creeps up that far, but because once, yeah, when you look at the Shaker Lane below, but once
Yeah, they-
kids get up, Lawrence Academy grabs them and this and that,
Yeah.
they start scattering.
Yeah,
So the
high
number's
school
been
grabs,
pretty
yeah.
consistent, but I think what you're just concerned about how big, the real thing is how big is Littleton gonna get? I mean, we're sitting still just under 10,000.
Right.
And it doesn't take, but an apartment complex, a large apartment complex, or,
Well-
like Town 2A in Acton, and all of a sudden, that is a number you would see.
I would think you
Yeah.
would, but, take Turkey Farm, I mean,
Yeah.
they're all four-bedroom houses down there.
Yeah.
And there are 20-some-odd houses, and there's another.
There'll be
15 or-
35 in total when it's
Yeah,
done.
35 houses.
Yeah.
If only half of them have 2 kids, that's 35 or 40 kids.
Yeah, and, I drive by there every day. You look at the bus stop, and there's not that many kids. It actually surprises me. There's maybe 3 parents with 2 or 3 kids there, and,
Well,
They go into private
But they
school.
haven't,
translate
they
it
haven't
yet.
fully.
No, they haven't,
Sold out
but
yet.
I always wonder what that.
The other thing that with the schools that's gonna happen next year and following years is that we're transitioning now to full
Kindergarten.
kindergarten paid by the town,
Yeah.
not paid by the parents.
Yep.
And that's going to bring in more teachers, more classroom, more salaries, and nothing coming back the other way to offset it. So that the school budget is going to go up just from that standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not on our list here, but it's something that's going to happen.
I agree with your point, Doug, that, 1 or 2 students won't tip the apple cart, but, when you usually look at developments, there's usually more than 1 or 2 students that are coming in. It may not be what we think it is, but, I spoke to Bonnie about looking at some of the new growth that we've had and looking at, maybe getting with the assessors and getting with the school to see how many students have actually come in and really run those numbers. We never did it, but we talked about it, and maybe that's something that.
Well, and the other thing is, as the town becomes more affluent, and by definition, we're becoming more affluent, because you don't see a house, the only houses under
Yeah, it's not
500,000
gonna
are
Rehabs.
resales.
Yeah.
And most of the houses are up in the 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 range. And those people have the wherewithal to send the kids out of town to go to school.
That's a good point.
Private schools.
Private schools.
And they do it. And I did with one of my daughters.
So you're saying you're a little affluent, getting a little snobby over there on us?
It used to be.
But she came off the ice from ice skating, and we were able to send her to private school. So that's what I was spending to ice skate. But
Instead of ice time.
our other,
your wallet.
right, our other daughter graduated from Littleton High School in '91 and had 49 kids graduate.
Yeah, 91, 92, the class sizes were
49.
really small.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was,
That's like a
she
private
was
school.
in most of the
Yeah.
high-level classes, and there were 4 and 5 kids in her classes. I mean, it was like unbelievable.
I don't see that coming again.
So, yeah, but, okay, so since '92 to now,
Yeah.
it's only doubled with all of the growth that's been in the town.
I mean, that's just one aspect. I mean, we're also talking, these families do other things. They use our businesses here, they eat here, so there is,
Yeah.
so there is a byproduct of, people being here. It's just, I think the feel around town, like my visuals and other would say that the town, there's a lot of residential development in Littleton right now.
It's all over the place.
Right, so and that's kind of where we talked a little bit, just how do we get our arms around, what does that mean, a year, 2, 3 out, and where's that, what's that gonna make us look like? never mind aesthetically, but what is it gonna make us look like financially?
Right, absolutely.
The governor's gonna give us a capital, money for capital, right?
Right, and that was a
Right.
huge push, you know.
Well, it wasn't that much money, though, to make it
No,
significant.
it
It wasn't
wasn't.
significant at all, but.
That's not.
We were already
that's
meeting it,
great to-
so-
To
Right.
get that now, but, you know,
I
it's,
just, it was.
No, you're right, no,
Well, it was,
I know.
it's a
so
token.
we view it as bad, but of course, in the
Right.
bigger picture, you know, we need more housing, but of course,
Yeah.
building more $800,000 houses doesn't feel like it's helping the housing crisis, but.
Right, but that's where the developers make money,
I
make
know,
no mistake
I know,
about
we
it,
all know
right?
that,
So,
because of the land, yeah.
so
Well,
we'll
it's
see.
density on the land. It's as much density as they can, it's either a big $1 million home, $800,000 million home, or it's apartments and all kinds of stuff jammed in there to make it work.
Have you been on Edward Road? I think it's Edward Road.
I don't even know where Edward
Where-
Road is.
It's off of Hartwell, not Hartwell, it's off of Whitcomb.
Oh, yes, I've been up
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm talking about density.
You haven't been up
Houses are just,
on top of one
And
another.
they-
It
yeah,
It must
they
be
go
clustered
for
then, right, because they still have,
gotta
800
be clustered.
it's gotta be
Well, it's a little
clustered,
bit
which isn't
like,
bad.
That's like Foster,
Look at the
same
houses,
thing,
are
Grimes
pretty close
Lane,
to one
Yeah.
all 800.
This
It doesn't
one's kinda
feel like it,
nicer
'cause they've got
looking,
that
so
setback, which
I
makes it
don't think it has
a
the
little
water
more
problem
palatable.
that Grimes.
Take a ride up there and see.
Yeah, I'll have to take a ride.
So anyway.
But it's,
Anyway, we kind
Anyway,
of
yeah,
digress.
we did, but.
Good discussion. You know, I think going into the next fiscal year, we've just got to keep our eye on the type of growth that we have coming, the new growth that we have coming, and making sure we're watching what that means to our budgets going forward, so. I did send out, I tried to update this and send it out to you guys. I can certainly send the new chair this document if you guys think it's useful going forward with the dashboard. I just always thought it was good to kind of get a roadmap of what's going on, some of the larger financial projects on the horizon. So, I mean, if you got any questions about it, certainly could talk about it, but I think we've kind of reviewed some of this stuff already in the last couple meetings. And some of the stuff's come off, so. Any thoughts, comments? Find it useful? Is it something you want to continue to use, or do you think it was nice while I had it and the next
No, I
year?
think it's a good snapshot to remind us, because you do forget projects that are coming up. And this is kind of a reminder. You can remember a few of them, but when you look at this, it does help to know things that have been talked about, from the beach house to.
Why is the lighter track off? Why did you mark that off?
Well, I took it off because it was, right now they're trying to do the grant application, right? So I removed it as it was, because it was a capital article for town meeting, and they pulled it, so I pulled it off. It may
And we're
come
putting
back
money
on.
into that every year. Well, starting this
Yeah.
year, we put money
Yeah, we're
into it.
putting money into it, so it may come back on, but for now, it was pulled, so I redlined it. But it's still down there, so you can see it. Okay, well, I'll send the master over to the next chair, and they can play with it and do whatever they want with it and go from there. Let's bounce down to member updates. Any updates from anyone?
I have one, the sewer study committee is going to have a Q&A table at the third Thursday, next Thursday, on Fay Park. If anybody's interested, just stop by and ask whatever questions you want to ask. They were planning on having a business meeting with some of the businesses to try to, get more people to sign up, but they decided to have a sort of a public session at third Thursday. So I don't know how those things get advertised, that, who's going to be there or what, but this one is going to be there, so.
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook, so that's how it got advertised somewhat.
So
I
I
don't know
don't
if you're
know.
on the third Thursday thing. That actually was a plug that.
Okay,
that
that's
put
fine,
out.
but I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know.
The selectmen spoke to that last night. during their
Okay,
updates,
so
too.
whatever, but it's, that is happening.
Is it a dunk booth?
I'm sorry?
Is it a dunk booth?
Could be, I haven't been involved, so I don't know. That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else?
Space Needs meets tomorrow night. We haven't done a whole lot. Been having trouble getting meetings and getting a quorum. we have this huge group of people, but they're all from other boards. And it's like the busy people are doing the busy stuff. And so we have difficulty getting a meeting night where everybody hasn't been to 4 meetings already that week and say, I just can't make this one. So the last meeting didn't have a quorum. So we'll see.
How many members do you have in that? 10?
I don't know, 9 or so. Well, it's more than that now because now we have 2 or 3
At large.
at-large members. And then, of course, every department head is there because they're the backup people to provide information. So the room is just full of people and I think it's just too big to get anything done. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I know when I was on the,
Need more space?
yeah, I need more space, but
Yeah.
I was back on the Economic Development Committee. We had, I want to say it was like 9 members, and there was some meetings where we had a tough time getting a quorum, just because, you need at least 5, and if you don't have 5, then you can't even carry out your meeting.
And it's always made up of people who come from other boards. Like on the Space Needs, both Steve and I are on it. Now, Steve has said today that he wants to get off because he just doesn't have the time.
I believe Rich Crowley is replacing him on that one.
Well, we'll see. Rich Crowley said I'll replace him, but we'll see what happens, so.
Right, well, because Steve is now chairman of PMBC because Joe Calentro has had to resign due to his health.
Has he resigned? Ah,
His health is really bad.
that's too bad.
You were at the fire station opening. You probably saw that Scott Wazinski had to help him walk over. Yeah, so Steve is now chairman of PMBC and has replaced Joe that way.
So we'll see what happens tomorrow night, see how it goes.
But besides having a quorum, you need enough people that you're making decisions, and then you're really representing the group. I mean, if you're
Right.
just barely squeaking by with a quorum every time, that's not
doesn't
fulfilling
work.
what you're trying to do either, right?
Work, yeah.
So
Sometimes
anyway,
you gotta cut
your
the-
point's just
the
too
boards
big, right?
down,
Yeah,
make them a
right.
little smaller. We
could pay for another study that we'll throw on the trash. I mean, Jesus, we've only done that 3 times.
Really? Brett always right on point.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Any other member updates, Betsy, guys?
I'm sorry I brought it up.
The only thing I guess I'd say, well, if you don't know, I got reappointed last night, so you're stuck with me for another 3 years.
My condolences.
I gotta work with you.
Maybe.
You're quitting on us? Putting out the pasture? But if you haven't done so, Betsy, Tom, I think you folks are reappointed as well. We gotta get sworn in before
Oh,
the,
we have to do that.
yeah, we gotta get sworn in.
forgot about
Go see Diane, get sworn in before the 1st of July. So, all right, public input.
Dun-dun-dun.
Oh, anyone? Well, I guess we can skip over that one. Minutes, the only minutes that I sent out was the one from 3:20. I spoke to Marilyn, we've got 2 more meetings that, she wasn't here, and she's gonna take a look at the videos and get us minutes for April 3rd and May 5th, and that should get us caught up to date as far as minutes, but working with Marilyn and Diane, we gotta get them posted, because we're missing a lot that haven't been posted, so we'll get that sorted out. I'll make sure I own that and not pass that on to the next.
And I think for some of those too, probably doesn't have to be full minutes, like when you're here with all he said, she said, you need to make sure you get the key points,
The key
any
points,
decisions
yeah.
been made and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just the key things. And we didn't have a meeting, we had a meeting posted, but we didn't have it on the 7th of May, because we didn't need to have that. That was just before town meeting, so.
Yeah,
there
well, we
won't be any-
usually meet a half hour before to see if there's
Yeah,
anything.
there wasn't, we didn't have a meeting, so there wasn't a need to do that, so there won't be any minutes for that one. Okay. All right, so then the next thing is the board reorg.
Do we need to vote on those minutes she did send out?
Oh, we need to, oh, sorry, yeah, we do, the 3:20, sorry, I missed that. That's the only one that we're missing that she sent out, so I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from March 20th.
Motion to approve the March 20th minutes for the FinCom meeting?
Second, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstained because I wasn't there.
Okay, so you're all set to
Okay, yep.
get that one in
And
there.
I'll make sure Diane gets it.
And if you can just send out those other minutes when you get them done for the third and the third and the third, 4-3 and 5-3, so we can get those taken care of. Okay, so we're good with minutes. Board reorg for next fiscal year. We got some changes coming.
I nominate Greg Champney as chair.
Second?
I decline.
I mean, obviously, the selectmen had reappointed you last night because they have faith in you.
You must be able to work with them.
So I assumed that they figured we would do just exactly that.
Decline. I decline. I do not want to be chair for another year. I think that's a dictatorship, 2 years in a row.
That used to be the term,
I
was
was
2
gonna say, to
years.
be honest, it used to be on purpose it was 2 years, because the first year supposedly you had the prior year's chair to kind of help you, and then the second year you were helping the one coming up underneath, so actually, it used to be a plan that you would do.
It was always a
I'm not
2-year
really putting you on
term.
the spot for this one, but that was the intention.
Back in the days when you and I had to be chair.
Well, but I didn't, yeah, except that I didn't have that first year where somebody was there either because the person was gone or something, but anyway. So
Well, I
that was just,
appreciate,
that
I
was just
appreciate you
entertainment
guys
value,
wanting
Greg.
me to chair. That just means you guys don't want to be chair.
We really like you.
Oh,
No,
that's a very negative attitude.
it is. It is a negative attitude.
That's what we like to see,
You did a
standing up
fine,
to the
you did a
select.
fine job.
Well, I thank you, but I need to step down from chair for this year. Who knows? I might not be employed.
Well, then you'll have plenty of time
Then
to
you'll have
do it.
plenty of time.
You want to go back to being a selectman then?
I'm walking away from this. I'm going to get some water. Mid-meeting. All right, well, it's been moved and seconded. What do you guys want to do? I don't want to be chair. I'm being clear. I really don't.
I'll withdraw the nomination, how's that?
Thank you, appreciate that. I mean,
It was worth it for the entertainment value.
yeah, you guys want to see me sweat.
He did, he had a little bra.
I did, just a little right here. Smart Alex. All right. Appreciate you withdrawing. I actually I don't know, can I nominate somebody? I nominate you.
No, you can't.
I can't, can I?
You're still running the meeting.
Yeah. All right, well,
Well, then I'll nominate Fred.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
But you make a fine addition to the chair.
I think he's gonna do a great job as chair
Absolutely.
for fiscal year 19. Okay, let's vote that. So, all in favor?
All right.
Those opposed? You're the man. So, starting, the way I kind of, I was talking about this before, I think it should run through the fiscal year. So, July 1st. That's all you. All right, so now we need a vice chair. Look for a nomination for vice. I think Gary still
Yeah, I
wants
was
to be
gonna
vice.
say, I nominate Gary.
Like that choice.
Seconded?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Vice Chair, you stay right where you are. And we
We'll see
need
how I
a,
work with Fred, I don't know.
we need a clerk.
It's a big job.
I think Tom should stay as
Tom
clerk.
got it.
Yeah, Tom did a fine job this
Yeah, I
past
think
year.
so.
All right, so let's get a motion for Tom.
So moved.
Second? All right, second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, so Fred's chair, Gary, you stay as vice, and Tom, you stay as clerk. That'll be effective next month. All right, cool. Well, thank you for not putting me on the spot there any more than you did and make me sweat it out, but I've enjoyed serving as your chair for the last year. I almost walked out of here. I just made it look like I was leaving, but I got some water. So,
We didn't coordinate all that behind your back,
I
I'm just
know
letting
you
you
did.
know. There was a mastermind with that.
I know Fred was up to something over there. He's always scheming. All right, well, with that, then I'll look for Fred's favorite part of the meeting. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next meeting is the 10th, I believe. I think it is, yeah, it's scheduled for the 10th.
July 10th?
July 10th. I will not be here.
I won't be here. I won't be here either.
I'm not sure I will either.